only way to grow your business is through the service that you offer this one client. What would you do for them? Yeah. Literally. Then take whatever that is and do it for every member in your gym. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. So, like, again, take it back, like what you were doing. Literally, you grew a business just straight up through referrals.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Hellen's back in the studio. What's up, Matty?
What's going on, man? It literally has probably been 6 weeks, or I don't even know how long.
I know. I don't even know if I made the official announcement. Props to Matt. He's now the VP of Studio Ops. So it's everything to do with operating your studio. So like as soon as you come to training, and then everything beyond that, we're building a team under Matt. He's got it from that point on. So that's probably why you haven't heard from him. He's been a smidge busy with like 30-something clubs coming to open here soon.
Oh, man, it's so much fun, man. We have like... 9 or 10 in pre-sales right now. We got another batch of 20 to 30 coming this year. It's phenomenal.
Oh, and I know we've got a guy on the left coast that's on the team. Shout out to Adam, who is our pre-sale specialist, and he has the great privilege of sitting home in his underwear all day selling over the phone, which, as you guys know, if you're not wired for it, that's a tough role, and he's doing a really good job. So props to you, Adam, if you're listening. Yeah,
no.
From San Diego.
I keep trying to talk him into moving back to Georgia. So
he did hit me up, and he was like, yeah, maybe. I'm like, come on, man. We'd love to have you in here every now and then. I'd like to see your face at least once a week. So otherwise, we'll lock you in a closet and just let you sell stuff. But he's really great. So
yeah, doing great.
Great tool. So, all right. So I had Andrea on the podcast. That was my last guest as far as in person, because I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls and barring other podcasts that I've done, that type of thing. But because I've been a little busy too. I don't know if you knew that. So I've also been a little busy.
I didn't think you did anything.
Yeah, exactly. Busy doing nothing. It's not nothing. It's hard to do nothing all day and look busy. It's an art. But so we did a dad joke, but I want to get back to Did You Know, since that was our theme. So like kind of blowing it out of the water. I should have our guests do Did You Know. I thought you said that, right? It's like, why aren't the guests doing it? I'm like, I haven't asked them to.
Yeah, come on, man. It's the theme of the year.
All right, you ready? Well, you do yours first.
Okay, well, this one, hopefully I'm not making this up, but I swear this is a Did You Know? It's not that bad. So, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Yes.
So in college, he was so dominant that they literally made it forbid anybody from dunking the basketball while he was in college. Like, they made it a rule.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So can you imagine making a rule for the whole league based on one guy?
Yeah, because he was so good.
Well, they've had other rules like that, but I mean, that's cool when it's dominant. Do you remember when the horse collar rule in football was called like the TO rule because Terrell Owens got grabbed in that Super Bowl playoff and rolled up on the back of his legs, and then they came up with that, and they always call it the TO rule. So there are certain inflection points like that. I'm glad they brought dunking back. That would be a really boring game if it's just
there's one for injury, but if you're so good that they make rules, that's a
whole different ball game. Right. Yeah,
that's kind of where the skyhook came
from.
If
I just want to watch layups all day, I'll just watch WNBA.
Yeah, right.
I'm just teasing. They could whoop me up and down the court all day long, but that's not saying much. Anyway, so do you have a Did You Know? You want to go first on your Did You Know?
I just did it.
Was that it?
Yes.
All right, I guess that was pretty interesting. All right, so
what
mine.
the hell?
Matt, you still here? Matt, anywhere?
God.
Mine is the Guinness Book of World Record for the most prolific mother. So she spit out more kids than anybody ever. She was a Russian peasant from the. I don't know why I'm laughing. She's a Russian peasant from the 1700s, and she is rumored to have had 69 children, over 27 pregnancies. That's some weird math. So let me break it down for you. 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. Not quintuplets. That's a whole other ballgame.
When was this?
In the 1700s. Imagine having, if you had a kid, the risk of having a kid in Russia in the 1700s of dying was so high. Imagine having that many. Dude, 7 sets of triplets, 16 pairs of twins, and 4 sets of quadruplets in the 1700s.
She had her own village.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, her uterus literally fell out.
Did you say spit out?
Yeah. I mean, it had to be. You get 4 kids coming out of there. 4 times 16 pairs of twins. And I mean, there's not great medical care back then. How do you even recover from that? This lady was literally made to have babies. That's her special talent. Unbelievable. And who's sleeping with that after that many kids? 69 children. She must have just been laying in a bed in the middle of the village with dudes just swinging by after work. You know what I mean?
My God.
Well, I mean, how do you have that many? Like, how do you have that much sex even to have that many kids? That's insane. Anyway, I don't know about the genetics on that either. Like, is that all on her side? It would have to be.
It was only what, said 27 times.
Well, 27 pregnancies. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's just weird. It must have been the same dude because genetics, I don't understand how you have that many multiple child events. This is crazy as hell. Okay. Anyway, I miss having Matt on the podcast. You don't get this normally. It takes right back to like 12-year-old humor, which is amazing.
Are you going to do your Did You Know now?
You're right. I know. Touche. Fuck. Oh, it's been too long. Oh, anyway, I like it.
Are you even listening to me?
Are you here? What is this noise? Why is there a noise in my right ear?
Oh my gosh.
You know what we are going to talk about today? Like something real is going to be referrals.
Yeah, referrals, man. It's a big deal.
It is. It's the best type of new business that you could get. They typically stick around longer, and they're just better customers because you're literally, if you have happy customers, you normally like them. They normally like you. They refer people, and those are people that are typically like the people they're referring. They want them to be there, and you normally are really happy that they're there. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, referrals is something that we work on constantly within our franchises. Because, I mean, that's like just all the things you just said. But the biggest thing that I always see is most people just think they deserve referrals, right? They just expect them to happen. Like,
elaborate on that. Like, what do you mean deserve?
Well, when you start asking and probing questions like, hey, how many referrals did you get? How many, like, are you asking, doing these things? Like, sometimes they're not even thinking about it. So it's just that expectation, like, oh, it's just going to happen, right?
People you mean like going into it, I'm expecting that.
Yeah, like I'm just going to, like, people are going to refer people into my
business. It reminds me of the whole, like, the build it and they will come kind of mentality. Yeah. Like, oh, it's going to be so dope. Everybody's coming in.
Right. And, like, you think back, when your training days and 1700s.
All right, if in full transparency, I'm the one that slept with that Russian lady 69 times or however many times. Wait, 47? I already forgot.
But I mean, your whole business was based on referrals. There wasn't social media. There wasn't any. There wasn't any internet.
This a weird backhanded compliment? Rick, you received so many referrals because there was no internet of things.
But
you're right.
You had to grow it that way, which pull it back. That's just word of mouth.
Yes.
Right. That's your business, and what that shows, you pull it away. That shows how good you actually are.
Yeah. Well, in that case, thank you. You're old as hell. Because at one point you had it.
You only have, and I put this out to our franchisees one day. I was like, just take this picture. You got, one client, and the only way you can get more clients is through that client's word of mouth. How would you treat that client? How would you, take care of them?
I remember that. I love that lens. You have one customer.
Yeah.
And you have no social media. You've got no way to market. The only way to grow your business is through the service that you offer this one client. What would you do for them? Yeah. Literally. Then take whatever that is and do it for every member in your gym.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So, like, again, take it back, like what you were doing. Literally, you grew a business just straight up through referrals.
Yeah.
Word of mouth. You go fast forward to today, what do most of us heavily lean on or go?
Yeah, social media marketing, digital marketing. And I mean, it's because it's easier, like, if I'm honest, like, I mean, I've fallen victim to this too. I will tell you that when Facebook ads came out, it might have been 2013, 14. I mean, you could make wild claims and put crazy pictures up, and they put a lot of safeguards around that for probably the right reasons. But man, you could just, leads were cheap. You could get bombarded with Facebook leads early on. And what I noticed is at the same time that happened, Matt, our referrals dropped exponentially. So we just, like, when we didn't have to ask anymore, and we weren't paying attention to it, because I think you're probably going to get into today, like, how it's threaded into all the conversations and the way you service people. It by default made things a bit more transactional, which is exactly what we don't want to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so then we had to, like, circle back because we started noticing that our digital leads, it's changed a little bit then, but at least at that time, because there was so much volume, our digital leads weren't necessarily as quality as our referrals. So then we set these goals. At the time, we had Joe here, who was a master of referrals, because he had also come up in a system where you had to, like, drive your own business. And so we would set a goal of, like, we want half of all of our new business each month to come from referrals.
Right.
And it didn't matter if it was 100 new people in a month, because during these golden years of Facebook, you could get that. 50 of those needed to be referrals, which was really hard to do. But what it did was it refocused us on the best type of lead, which would long-term be the best type of customer.
Yeah. Which, since digital came out, we made us lazy. It's the easy button, things like that. You take your eye off the ball. Maybe your service isn't as good and you're not working as hard. There's that side. But the big part of it is if you just look at digital, it's never going to get any cheaper. Like say you had the golden years, maybe when it first came out, is it?
Right.
Say you start a campaign digitally, it's going to be cost you X amount for this lead. It's only going to get worse.
Now, are you saying like over a long period of time or just like in a short period? Kind of
a
both,
long
right?
period of time. Like it's not going to improve typically, right?
Right.
It's not going to get any cheaper.
Correct.
Say, right? So say like, we have clubs that start out in digital leads that get like $10 leads.
Right.
Crazy, right?
Yep.
It's only going to go up, increase. And, it typically hits a ceiling, but it's still not going to get better, right? It's only going in one direction.
Correct.
Kind of stuff. So you're costing more. You're having to spend more to get same amount of leads. But if you look at word of mouth, that's literally, based on your service and you doing it, 1 can turn into 2, 2 can turn into 4, 4 can turn into 8. It's never ending.
Yep. It's a huge multiplier.
Stuff, right? So costs, like, why wouldn't you want to go there?
Right.
It doesn't cost me really anything for me to ask you after providing good service to get a referral, right?
Yep. Now, why do you think that it's so difficult for people? Like, I mean, what you're saying, I think if anyone listening, I know that I'm like, yeah, of course, duh. I mean, I think anyone listening that's not, have an IQ of like 40 is like, oh yeah, cool, I get it, right? So why do you think then people don't do it more often?
Yeah, I mean, it's human nature. It's hard to ask for things. We kind of joke around sometimes. Trainers suck at sales, kind of thing.
Sure.
People don't like to ask for money. They don't feel comfortable doing it,
right? Kind
of stuff. Which, that we'll get to later. Which we can talk about now is really that's just more of a cultural thing,
right?
That's like creating that culture where everybody is looking for opportunities to get referrals and get people in.
Well, and I think we've had this conversation a lot about people being like scared of money, if you will. And there's all kinds of reasons why, like selling from your own wallet, all these other reasons why, like maybe, coaches don't make great, salespeople. But even if you flip the script and you're like, okay, altruistically, are you in this business to help people? I think all trainers would say, sure, of course. It's like, okay, well then if this was a way for you to help more people, would you do it? And I think they would all say yes. Now, there's still the effort part. There's the fear of hearing no, right? Or it being awkward. But all you have to do is just break through that mental barrier. And you'll find that, like, I think we talked about this before. It's like you're saying, like, people just assume, build it and they will come. Well, sometimes clients really don't even know that you are trying to grow your business. I can distinctly remember when we would get refocused during that time period I was talking about, like, let's refocus on referrals. And we would start asking people, and the responses I would get were so surprising to me. Like, I would literally have people say, oh, I thought it was completely full because every time I'm in here, there's no slots open. It's packed. So if you're asking, say, in an alloy structure, it's 6 to 1. If it's a busy hour at 9 a.m. or something like that, and you're asking someone in there for referral, and there's always 6 people booked in there, you might be surprised to know that they assume that every hour is booked with 6 people. They don't know that there's times open at 7 p.m. or 4 p.m. or whatever those times are, right? But you have to ask to discover that.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, going back to the cultural part within your team, I mean, I was brought up in it, thankfully, according with you. Like, how many times did we have meetings and referrals was a topic?
Always,
right? Every meeting, we're like, all right, how many referrals is what we got, right? How many times do we role play those scenarios, right? How many times have you gamified that, right? We're like, all right, whoever gets the most referrals, make it a competition. There's a scorecard and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
How many times have you talked to other businesses where they don't do any of that, right? Referrals isn't in their culture, and they can't understand why nobody's asking.
Overwhelmingly, people do not ask enough,
right? So, like you just said at the beginning, like, we're just expecting to get referrals. But if none of your coaches or your team isn't even asking about it, how will your clients even know to give them to you? How will they even come about that? You may randomly get some here or there. But if your team is trained and they know how to hit cues, when I say, like, you come in and you do the in-body and you're like lost like 10 pounds of body fat or something, like, oh man, that's great. Do you have anybody else that would enjoy coming in and seeing the same results? Right? If nobody's trained and thinking in that way all the time, it's not going to happen because there's opportunities everywhere.
Can you touch on maybe 2 or 3 like key points? Like we can just use Alloy as an example that you think are prime times to ask for referrals?
Well, prime time number 1 is always after our starting point session, right? Point of sale. People are really excited.
Right.
Taking that full
They've finally taken that step in their life.
They came in the door, which was the hardest part, quite honestly. Great time to ask, right?
Yep.
So 100% of the time, are we asking there? Okay. Next is in bodies. We do those every 30 days. We kind of talked about this yesterday as kind of our key point to time to value.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And this is another opportunity. Are you 100% asking after every in body, like, hey, do you have anybody else who enjoyed seeing results like this? You know, you talked about your husband. Do you think they'd like to come in and see this? Right. Are we 100% doing that? Other opportunities could be just literally in the workouts themselves. Could be like maybe they had a new accomplishment or do more push-ups than never done before. Other moments could literally be things in their life. Like maybe they remember this time we had firemen in here, or a guy that was coming fireman training. You remember this?
Yes.
And we came in, we trained him up so that he could, pass the physical test. Yep. And he did. Right? Do you think that's a great opportunity to celebrate with him and ask him for a referral?
For sure.
But it's all those things. You need to be constantly looking at those and talking about those as a team. If not, it's going to be dismissed. Missed opportunities.
Do you think it's important to measure it? I always think of that statement from Peter Drucker that says what gets measured gets managed, meaning like, is it important that the team understands how many referrals you got and where they came from?
Absolutely. I mean, we track, data drives everything as part of like EOS and everything we've always done. We track how many, like who our actual signups are, where their source came from. We're shooting, you had a metric like 50% referrals. So we'll say like between 25 and 50% of your people are getting referrals. Are we doing that? The biggest thing I can honestly say in that front is when you get referrals, when you ask, like say if you asked me for a referral and I actually had somebody to give you off the top of my head, the magic honestly is in the follow-up of that, right? So if I tell you, maybe I'll talk to my wife, right? And I leave. Most of the time, what you'll see is that ends the conversation, right?
Right.
Versus maybe the next day you see me, like my next workout, I was like, hey, did you talk to your wife? Right? Is there any follow-up to get that going? And it's constantly. So it's keeping your, people ordered, have a spreadsheet, whatever, who your actual referrals are, potentials, and following up on them.
Yeah. So tracking the conversations and stuff, and we've got the tech tools to be able to do that. You're right. And I think, for anyone listening that's more sort of service-minded and, again, that sort of trainer that's afraid to ask, whatever that is, I think practice will squash that. But I think, you're assuming that the person might be irritated that you're asking, but there's ways to do it. That's why you role play in practice, right? Like one of our core values is humor with a touch of crazy. So like I think maybe one of the ways that we would ask it, like, when we were great at asking referrals is we would say like, well, you don't love your wife. Like you don't want her to live a long time. You're trying to like get a younger girlfriend. Like what you up to here? Like there's ways we could joke about like why they're not getting their husband or their wife or their friend or whatever. Like, you don't like your high school friends? Like you don't want them coming in here? Like they are your neighbors there's so many ways to approach that from a place that doesn't feel like every time they're in, like, hey, can I get the number of that person you mentioned the other day? It doesn't have to be like that cold, stale, like salesy approach, if that makes sense.
And what you'll find, and obviously we have found, is once you do that, like it's a part of your culture of your team, and then it comes in as a culture with your clients. So because your clients, it's personal training. They love you to death, right? They'll do anything for you. They just want to help you. So once they know that like this is what you're trying to do and this will help them, they're empowered by it.
Well, and I think people underestimate exactly what you just said, Matt, which there's so many studies that will, as long as you give someone a reason and you ask for help, you can make it very personal. Like, let me give you an example. Like, here's a study that's interesting. So like the scientists, social scientists, there was a long line at like a coffee shop or something, and they had people ask if they could cut in line. And all they had to do was give a reason, even if it was a lame reason. And if they just said, hey, can I cut? People would say no. Like, what are you, nuts? But if they said, can I cut in line? And they gave a reason, even if it was lame, people would say, okay. And so I think we can, and I mean, the reason might be like, hey, can I cut in line for coffee? Like I got to get to work. Well, probably everyone in that line's got to get to work, but you're like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. And then probably later you're like, what does that mean? I'm going to work too, But you would say yes. So I think in the same way, If say you were a new club, like a new Alloy as an example, and you're the coach that works at night and you want to have your schedule full, because that's one of the metrics we're measuring is how, percentage of sessions of yours that are fully booked. And you might say something like, hey, we opened a few, weeks back. We got a few spots open in the evening. Can you do me a favor? Like literally asking for you, because we and the company and all that's great. But I will tell you in personal training, the individuals are going to somewhat supersede what's on the front door, right? And so asking someone like, hey, Matt, can you do me a favor? I really want to get my schedule full in the evenings. Do you have anybody, like you're super cool, do you have anybody that's like you that would be a good culture fit here that you'd like to bring in or have me talk to that I could help? Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. No, I'd love to help you out. But it's got to be about helping you, the person right in front of them, right?
It's interesting, and it's a good thing. Is like I've had many of these conversations around what you just said, where like people, they love what we do and everything's we, and they tell us the story and stuff, and like it's almost weird telling people like you need to be a little more selfish and be like you're the person that's going to help them. Right. It's very interesting.
Well, it's a fine line. Look, the brand brings them in, but at the end of the day, it's a people business, and so people want to do something for people, and they want to do something with somebody with a face where they know their name and they know a little bit of their history. And so it's very powerful to say like, hey, Matt, can you help me out? I want to fill up my evening schedule. Do you have any cool people like you that you think would want to be a member here or a client? And give me the number. I'll follow up with them. Yeah. I mean, that's the most powerful way to ask, honestly.
So I mean, doing that, right? You make it a part of your team, constantly talk about it every week. Biggest thing I always see doing, consulting calls and out there is literally people like, and hell, I've been guilty of it myself, is like, hey, Rick, go get a referral, right? And I tell you one time.
Right.
You're like, what the hell? You didn't get any referrals.
Right. Well, like you said, it's got to be part of the culture.
Right. So part of the culture then goes into the clients. On both of those fronts, you also want to reward the behaviors that you want, right? So we talked a little bit like gamify with your coaches, kind of stuff.
You want to give a few examples of that we've done?
Yeah, I mean, we've had different things where, the most referrals got like, I don't know, you give gift cards away. You've gone like, I think you did a Theragun for one of the kind of things. But it's just every week.
It's not even about the thing as much as it is about the game, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah, and the recognition in front of your peers.
Right. So recognizing in front of the meetings, things like that, right? So that's your staff, right? So it's like kids. You want to, they do something good, you want to reinforce that behavior, right? Yep. Now on the clients, it's the same front, and we have stuff in place for that already, right? So first off, we got Alloy rewards, which we talked about here.
Yeah, you get the most points for a referral. Most points
for the thing that we want, right? You get 500 points, get that in there, and you can redeem it for other stuff.
Right.
Other soft touch stuff that we do, which, is huge. Nobody does it anymore. We do like handwritten letters, right? You refer somebody in, I'm going to write you a handwritten letter, right? Remember doing that all the time? Every meeting, we'd have everybody
passing
go around.
Them around.
I mean, we use them for multiple things, but that's huge. And then outside of that, you need to, if you have somebody that's giving you lots of referrals, don't you think you should, maybe step up your game a little bit? I mean, we've done things like, buy people dinner, theater tickets, sporting event, whatever.
And listen, I think it's you're 100% right, and that's a great way, and you do that after the fact. But just keep in mind that people aren't referring to you for movie tickets or whatever. That is a thank you gift, right? I think it's really important because one thing
they don't know about this. This is
that's what I'm saying, and it needs to be exactly how you described it.
Yeah,
and the reason I said that is I want to make a point for everyone listening to understand. If you try to run a referral drive based on a transactional gift, like if you drive the most referrals, you get a name in the hat, or if this for every referral you get a name in the hat. We're doing a drawing for I don't know, I'm just making things up, like a big screen TV. We've done those things in the past, and our customer avatar, if they want like the things that you could afford to buy for these gifts, they already can buy them on their own. It's not I don't mean this flippantly, but it's not like a big deal to buy a big screen TV for a client that can pay $300 or $400 a month for training.
Sure,
it's just not. I can distinctly remember when we ran our first sort of transactional referral drive, and we had two guys that were in it to win it, and they had referred like 12, 13 people each. And this is when we were running all kinds of layers of stuff, right? So we could actually take on like 700-800 customers at the time. And so we were giving away, it was when flat screen TVs just came out, which I know might sound weird, but they had just come out. So we hung it on the wall, and we looped like Alloy videos on it. And it was like HD, which was a big deal at the time too. So these two guys are like basically, and all they would do is ask where the other guy was. Like in my head, where's he? How many did he get? I got 4 more for you today. We're going to crush this. I'm bringing my buddies in,
Right.
that kind of idea. And I can distinctly remember the guy that won, when I went to give him the TV, he's like, oh, you can just give it to somebody else or donate the money or whatever. He's like, it doesn't matter to me. You can have it. Just take it home. I was like, really? He's like, I've got that same one like over in my bathtub in my bathroom. So he literally had the same TV that, and I'm telling you, at the time, the flat screen at that size with HD was like $4,000 or something ridiculous. He literally had it over his tub in his bathroom. He would sit in the tub and watch golf or whatever. So I'm like, all right. So it was
raising a lot of questions, but continue.
Golf, I said. Golf hub. And it was literally just the game itself, right? And speaking of culture, before I forget, we have a current Alloy franchisee who used to be part of another big fitness franchise. And I can distinctly remember him sharing. He had 7 or 8 locations, and he was sharing a message because all of his managers would communicate with each other through Slack, which we use that internally for our company as well. And so they were communicating on Slack, and one of his managers took a picture of a form, and she had sold a membership and acquired 5 referrals. And the message was like, boom, sold another one, got my 5. Let's go. Like, who else is going to do this, right?
Yeah.
But what it spoke to, and the reason I loved it, was it spoke to the fact that this person who is now an investor in an Alloy has built a culture where that's what you're chasing. Like, he has pointed everyone towards that as being something that's good. So like to your point, at the starting point session, that's the sale, if you will. First session, collect 5 names of other people that you could help, right? Mm-hmm. And he had done such a good job of it that here the manager was like taking a picture of it and got my 5. And then you could see all the other managers like, oh, I only got 3 last time. Okay, I'm going to beat you, right? I think it goes back to even our core values, like competitive spirit's one of our core values. It's like, all right, well, if you just want to win the game because you're in the game,
right?
Period. If you're wired that way, you just want to win. It's like winners win kind of idea, right? So it's like, if you got good people in there and you measure these things and you make it part of your culture, you can get to that point, then you're going to kill it.
Right. Everybody, we're all paddling in the same direction. We're all trying, like, every opportunity we're out there. We are, like, our model, 130 to 150 people.
Yeah, this isn't a lot. I mean, really, we're talking about, yes, get out in your community and get plenty of referrals during your pre-sale. Matt and the team are going to push you really hard to do that. But once you're open, you guys, if you run the type of retention model that's possible in an Alloy, you could spend very little money and keep your gym relatively full just through referrals. But you have to make it part of your culture, and you have to understand that there's these inflection point conversations that have to happen. And you have to role play them, and you have to practice, and you have to get your team comfortable. You have to measure it. Yep. You have to celebrate it when it happens, not only with the team, but with the members as well, like you said, random gifts, things like that. So it really is. I mean, there's like 85 techniques, and none of them are going to work if the overreaching point that you made, if it's not part of the culture.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Here's the 10 ways you can do it. Okay. But if it's not happening and you're not measuring it, it's not going to matter.
Yep. And then the most important thing is you can't suck. Actually, I have to be good.
Well, and that's one thing I was going to say is like, look, man, if your churn is too high and you're not getting any referrals, you can say whatever you want about how good that you think you're doing. The market never lies to you, bro. It does not, right? It's sort of like if we weren't selling any franchises, then it would just mean we're not showing well. And our return on investment proposition's not good. Thankfully, that's not what the market's telling us. But if you're in an Alloy or any other business, I don't care what business you're in, and you are, again, losing customers and you're not getting any referrals, the market's telling you exactly what you need to know. Your shit's not that good. I hate to say it. And even if it's something that, let's say it's Alloy, even if it's something that we built for you and everything is in place, you still got to run the damn play, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, we try to coach this to our franchisees, and I think it's a good message for anyone that's an entrepreneur that's in business. The market doesn't lie to you. If you're not getting referrals and you're losing customers, you have to get better. And this is something I've heard, a friend of mine in the industry say, like, I don't want to hear that you're doing your best either. And I know that's kind of a tough message for people. It's like, well, I'm doing my best. It's like, yeah, but if your best isn't good enough, you have to get better. Then your best will be good enough as a team, I'm saying, not as an individual. Maybe you do. Maybe as a leader, you're not really driving home that conviction in those meetings.
Sure.
Right? So if you say, well, and like if you're on a call with somebody, Matt, and they're like, well, we're doing our best, but the outcomes aren't there. It's like, okay, but your best is not good enough right now. So you're going to have to get better. That is, if this is your absolute best, honestly, I hate to tell you, it ain't good enough. You're going to have to get better. And that's a tough pill to swallow for people because I think, in our society, you'll hear things like, well, I did my best. And like, that's all you can do. It's like, no, it's not. You can actually work hard and upskill yourself and role play and practice and practice and practice. You can be better. And that's what you should be aiming for. And if you are, maybe then your best will be good enough. Does that make sense?
Trying my hardest, coach.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, look, if you can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field, you can try your hardest, but I'm not putting you in there when I throw a deep pass. It's not going to happen. That's a fact. And like, you know what? Your best should be hit the weight room and learn how to throw a football better. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But that's a tough thing to tell people. And I know you're in that coaching seat like 99% of the time these days. It's like, it's really hard to tell people like I'm doing my best. Like, well, that's not good enough. But that's a fact. The market's telling you. It's not me. I don't care. I wish your best was good enough, but it's not.
Right.
Upskill yourself. And I didn't mean to get on a tangent there, but
got a little fired up there.
They go, well, I get better. but I really want people to hear that. And I really want like that entrepreneur to point that finger at themselves, whoever they are, alloy or not, and say, listen, for this thing to get better, I have to grow as a leader. And if my current, what I feel like is my best effort ain't doing it, I need to change. I need to get better.
Yeah, it's true. Any business. Doesn't matter what you're in.
Yep.
For sure. Without going on a rabbit hole, that's just kind of referrals in a nutshell. You got anything else?
No, I mean, I know it's kind of high level, you guys, but like, listen, I think what the takeaways that I got from you, Matt, was like, make it part of your culture, which means you need to be measuring it, role playing it, talking about it regularly, and then celebrate it when it happens. Celebrate it with your team and also celebrate it with your clients. Don't run referral drives based on something transactional, like you're giving away an iPad. It doesn't matter to our typical customer avatar, and most people really either. You're not giving away a Rolls Royce. I mean, come on. So I think when you look at it that way, I think if you just start working on it, you'll be really surprised at how receptive your customers will be, and you'll be surprised to hear that they probably didn't even know that you were taking on new business.
Yeah, for sure.
So get out there and work on it. If you got any questions, hit us up. And anyway, great topic, man. Perfect time.
Awesome.
Cheers.